Excited to welcome y'all to today's conversation, Forging an Alliance for Educational Freedom. My name is Erin Valdez, and I'm Policy Director for our Next Generation Texas campaign. I'm delighted to introduce our two very distinguished guests, Mayor Mattie Parker of Fort Worth and Texas Association of Business CEO Glenn Hammer. They both have unique experiences and insight into the topic of educational quality and educational choices. Thank you both for being with us today. I'd like to start by introducing Mayor Mattie Parker. She was elected in June 2021 as the 45th mayor of Fort Worth. Leading one of the fastest growing large cities in the nation, Parker has set her focus on key issues that move Fort Worth forward, including economic development, innovative transportation and mobility solutions, quality education opportunities for every student, and building safer, more prosperous communities. Mayor Parker is a licensed attorney with more than 17 years of experience in national, state, and local public affairs, including her service as the chief of staff for mayor and the Fort Worth City Council, where she shaped major policy decisions on a variety of complex issues. She was the founding CEO of Texas Fort Worth Cradle to Career and the Tarrant County To and Through, or T3, partnership. She is a wife and mother of three, and she cares deeply about creating a community where all children have access to great educational opportunities. My next guest is Glenn Hammer. Glenn has a track record of advocating for the business community. As CEO of the Texas Association of Business since March 2021, he's made it his mission to, quote, visit more local chambers of commerce than anyone on the planet. He comes to TAB after leading the Arizona Chamber of Commerce for 14 years. He's the husband of Tally and the father of three daughters. Welcome to you both. I'd like to kick us off by asking a question that's on a lot of folks' minds right now. It is summertime. We're not quite back to school, but COVID has really brought some of these issues into focus, and that's the theme of the parental role in educational freedom and opportunity. We all know that parents care deeply about ensuring that their children's education prepares them for success in the workforce and in life. So, Mayor Parker, I'd like to start with you. You're the mom of some school-age kids. How has your experience raising them shaped your vision of educational opportunities in your community?
Well, first, thanks for having me. And this is a really important conversation. I think parents across the country, especially in a post-COVID environment, are more acutely aware of how important their education is to their kids and making sure they get it right. For our family, we have three kids. They're all so different, as everybody can say about their children. Our oldest is adopted, and she didn't join our family until she was 10. I mention that only because her educational journey, I was new, right? She was in 5th grade and trying to find her the right environment. Fast forward to later when I had kids at multiple different schools, at one point, a Montessori school, a traditional public school, a private school. And I mention that because we were fortunate enough to have the ability to sort of choose for our kids, figuring out what they need and the resources. And it breaks my heart sometimes when I interact with a family. Oftentimes it seems to be a mom that will come up to me and say, I don't know what to do, X, ... And it's important for me to set the level straight here. Sometimes it's a high-performing traditional public school that they're zoned for, right? But for whatever reason, the resources that they need for their particular child to make sure that they're succeeding are not available to them. And so my journey in this educational experience, both professionally before I was mayor and now, is just trying to make sure that regardless of zip code, regardless of income, in my community in Fort Worth, that our families have access to a high quality of education from cradle all the way to career. And I think the second piece of this, we're starting to wake up in Texas, and which is why I think having Texas Association of Business at the table is so important, is education and workforce are linked together. And for a long time, I think we kind of separated K through 12 from post-secondary and workforce. And actually our agency story tells that, right? You have multiple agencies really intersecting in this space. And there's work right now the legislature is doing with the Tri-Agency Council, which I think is really important. But we really, as parents, have to understand that link also, because we are truly setting up our children for success from cradle to career at a very early age in a way that I don't think we realized before. So of course, just like every parent, your own experience informs that. I'm just likely to now be at a policymaking level to really help that inform the right level of policy, especially in education, when really you're just using your bully pulpit as mayor to help inform that best practice.
That's very helpful to set the table here, Mayor Parker. And we'll be coming back to a lot of the themes you just touched on. And so in light of that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Hammer. So Glenn, you're also a father of three very accomplished daughters, one of whom I've had the pleasure of having dinner with. And so I was very impressed by her poise. I'd like to know how being their dad has informed or changed the way you think about education opportunity and workforce. I mean, it is your professional business, but it's also something that I think you could reflect on from a personal angle as well.
Well, Erin, and thank you. And thank you for your great leadership on all things related to education and workforce. And thank you for the kind words about Ella. She may, in fact, be tuning in from Arizona as we speak. And what an honor to be on this panel with Mayor Parker. She's America's education mayor. In her time of office, in her short time, she has already distinguished herself, and we're going to need her help as we continue to work to improve our K through 12 system and our entire education system. And Erin, I wish I could take my three girls are incredibly, they're three young women now, are incredibly accomplished. It really boils down to the great work that my wife, Tali, who also may be tuning in, has done. She has been a super mom to these girls. Now, the state I come from, Arizona, we were very blessed with full-blown opportunities and choice. And when I say that, I mean not just charters, and charters are a terrific part of the equation, but also full-blown open enrollment. So zip codes in Arizona, in the metropolitan areas, really don't mean that much when it comes to where a student will go to school. Now, there has been a missing link on that, thanks to Tali, who's tuned in. And we had three girls who, through their course of their career, of their K through 12, basically never went to the zone school. Now, they went to traditional schools, they went to charter public schools, but never to the school that they would normally be assigned to. That was only possible because my wife made tremendous sacrifice to transport our children. Otherwise, it would have been impossible. So an important component of any sort of choice regime has to be the transportation element. And that's where some of the policy efforts come in. And I don't know if Dr. Matt Ladner is tuning in. He's a native-born Texan. He's not just a great education choice advocate. I think he's the best in the country in terms of his policy knowledge. He's also knows his Texas barbecue, which has helped me out greatly. But there's a lot of things I think we could do in Texas in terms of increasing the ability of parents to choose public schools, charter or traditional, for their kids, as well as things that we can do to increase access to great charters. And I'm glad that my friend Starley Coleman, who does a great job running the Texas Charter School Association and came from Arizona, is with us. My final point, Erin, I think you kicked it off the right way, is K through 12 goes all the way up the line. We want these students to be prepared so that they're ready for community college, some sort of advanced training, or university, because we know that 60-70% of the jobs are going to require something post high school. But we have to think of this as an integrated system. It can't just be K through 12, and we don't have the universities, community colleges, and other providers involved. And I think of it like I'm a baseball fan. I won't tell you who I root for. I was born in the Bronx, but it's all the way up through the system. The minor leagues are connected to the major leagues, and I think we have to have that connectivity. And thank you for the chance to be here this afternoon.
Well, those are very good observations you've made about some things that Arizona has done right and is continuing to do right, and even expand upon. And of course, we here in Texas are looking to them and to Florida as examples. And so we're so excited to have you, who've experienced that, be able to bear witness to that here in Texas. So thank you for that, Glenn. And I think one of the things that strikes me is that our polling here at TPPF is so clear that parents, when you ask them what they care about, they say, we want the K-12 system to deliver readiness for life, for success in life, right? For good jobs, good careers. And that's what they're looking for. And so that gets to your point about needing to have these systems better integrated. And so we've been working on a number of issues here to better align incentives in that space to make the institutions actually have to care about how students do after they graduate. So one of the things I'd love to hear from you, Glenn, and then I'll ping it back to you, Mayor Parker, is, the Texas Association of Business bills itself as the voice of business. And so you've been doing a lot of listening across the state so that you can deliver the message that you're hearing from businesses. And so I'd just love to hear from you kind of what you're hearing from business owners, big business owners, small business owners, and what they see as the biggest constraints on the Texas economy, the biggest opportunities in our economy, especially around the talent pipeline and hiring and how that impacts our supply chains.
Well, the fundamentals of the Texas economy are outstanding, and I would argue actually the best on the planet. Zero income tax, light regulatory environment, and a great infrastructure. Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. I mean, you can't beat it. But one thing that constantly comes up is workforce, is that there is a misalignment between what's needed for employers and the skills and just the quantity of the availability of talent. I mean, we have more jobs open today than people to fill them. And then you add on top of that fact that for a number of areas and in Texas, it's hard for me to think of a single area where employers don't need more workers with certain skills. And I think part of this, Erin, is the importance of making sure that we also have good career and technical education training. I think also part of this is making sure that in the high school years, kids have a chance at dual enrollment where they can get college credits, because we know kids that have skills and certificates and are getting some sort of credits before they graduate, the odds of them being successful in life are very high. And at the end of the day, we can advocate, and I think chambers have a responsibility to advocate, but we're looking forward to working with Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and Speaker Phelan, because we're going to need their help to get these policies through. And I just want to say, Governor Ducey in Arizona, he's already a Hall of Famer when it comes to choice in education. Right now, if you were going to say, who's Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, it would be Doug Ducey and Jeb Bush. And I think that through some of the inspirations of our current governor, Governor Abbott, and Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and the desire for, I know, our speaker to see Texas to remain as the top state in the country for business, next session is going to be historic. But we're going to need the mayor spending a lot of time at the Capitol. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And I'd love to turn it over to you now, Mayor Parker. I mean, I think Glenn hit on a lot of things there, including the need for better CTE in high schools, industry partnerships, business partnerships. I know that in your role prior to being mayor, you worked on a lot of those things. As mayor, you created the Council on Education and Workforce Development. So I would just love to hear your thoughts on what makes for a successful business education partnership. What are some lessons learned, and how can you inform the rest of the state on those things?
Well, I think fortunately across Texas, we have great examples of what does work, both with CTE curriculum, with our early college high schools, that a lot of our community colleges are partnered already with our area high schools and different ISDs, a new academy model that's been created at some of our ISDs in North Texas. The problem really is they're not scaled across the board to make it available for all students. And so you spoke about our council in Fort Worth. We don't need another nonprofit or program in Tarrant County. We're really flush with the right types of initiatives. What we need is to break down the bureaucracy between business and K through 12 to sort of create this real K through 14 or 16 trajectory for business and for students. We just celebrated this past May our early college high school graduates. Over 500, by the way, graduated from area ISDs in Tarrant County College. They graduated in May, 2 weeks before their high school graduation, with an associate's degree. An associate's degree that's worth $40,000, right? And I just sit there and ask myself, let's talk about the kids that receive these degrees. These are oftentimes, more times than not, they are first generation English language learner families that are chosen in the 8th grade to enter one of these EC programs. What's fantastic about it is not only are they successful, but they're already on to 2 years towards finishing their bachelor's degree. They can go straight into the workforce if they want to. And I ask myself, why are we not making that option available to every single high school student in the state of Texas? There's no reason why we shouldn't be. And we have community colleges across the state that are already doing these initiatives. They just need additional resources. So we're doing a few things locally to kind of understand what the cost per pupil is, how to make those partnerships easier, make the seats available to our smaller ISDs that maybe don't already have an existing early college high school program. When it comes to workforce, they know what they need, right? When you talk to a CEO or especially a head of HR for some of these major companies that are part of TAB, they'll tell you, I need 10,000 engineers by year 2020, 2050. These are the types of programs I'm working with. But right now they're creating their own initiatives. The K through 12 system is usually just a philanthropy for them. That is hard to admit, but they're not partnered in a way they know those students are graduating to come work for them, right? You have to change the equation. And what's really missing is a higher education institution to help them get to that place. And then lastly, we've got to change the stigma. Not every student in Texas needs to go on to a 4-year degree. And furthermore, they're financially better off if they don't do that. What we kind of created in this country since post-by 1960s is this push and focus on 4-year degree for all students. Look, I would love for every kid to get to go off to UT Austin or Texas A&M and party for 4 years and have a great time, right? And that is available to them. But there are a lot of students in Texas right now, they need a job right out of high school. Oftentimes they're the breadwinner for their family. So when a kid tells you, hey, I've got to work double shifts at McDonald's to help pay for my grandmother's healthcare, they're actually telling you the truth. And we need to kind of meet them where they are. And that has not been the case. And we haven't lifted up those families to say, we're going to support you to achieve those goals while you're still in high school. And then you get to choose at 18 after a 2-year degree to go on and finish a 4-year diploma. So it's multifaceted, of course. And my job as mayor is to try to make that easier and break down barriers with workforce and leaders in business, so they feel like kind of a sense of obligation to be more involved in K-12. Because before they would tell you candidly, the bureaucracy was too great. And I don't blame our school districts either, because it's just a difficult connection to make. So in closing, just say that there are good examples out there. And I should give credit where it's credit's due. If you hear Harrison Keller with Texas Higher Education, he talks about this ad nauseum and is really working hard with his other agency partners to make this possible. So really people like Glenn and I need to tag team with what's working across the state of Texas and lift up the good stories we have in our own communities.
Couldn't agree with that more. Glenn, I'd like to turn it over to you. Maybe you can reflect a little bit on some of the ways that TAB plans to or is already involved in some of the work among the 3 agencies that you have already touched on. That would be the Texas Education Agency, that's our K-12 system. Then Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, which is all our post-secondary public systems, and also the Texas Workforce Commission. So these 3 agencies were brought together in a formal partnership last session under House Bill 3767. And there's a lot of work going on right now where they're trying to do exactly what you're talking about, Mayor Parker, breaking down those barriers, those bureaucratic walls that have really kept the value from being delivered to taxpayers, first of all, for the amount of money we're putting into these systems, but moreover, and most importantly, value for students so that they get what they need when they need it. And so, Glenn, I'd love for you to reflect a little on that and anything you look forward to from that work.
Sure. Well, I'll just say that all of those bodies are doing an excellent job and are in constant communication with the Texas Association of Business and the business community. The connectivity is outstanding, but what it's going to take structurally is having a more systematic approach on the business community. And I'm going to be very specific here. Like when I took over the Arizona Chamber many years ago, I was told, if you want to get involved in education, run. And if someone asks you to do it again, run faster. That changed over time. And it changed because we had a great leader in Arizona, former state superintendent Lisa Graham Keegan, who joined the Arizona Chamber Constellation and made the case that this was really connected to all businesses. And she staffed our efforts. She led the efforts to tie the business community into the formal education establishment. Now, my friend Matt Ladner, who is a native Texan, who I'm trying to recruit back to come to Texas from Arizona. He's read too much Arizona Chamber propaganda, I think, but maybe one day we'll get him back. Matt played a huge role there. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning Matt, he connected me to our executive vice president, who's also a very distinguished TPPF alum, Stephanie Matthews. Stephanie is an education expert. She's a workforce expert. She gets how all of these things are connected. And part of the reason I came here, and Matt is the one who recommended that I bring her on. And he said I didn't even need to interview her. She's that good. And he was right, is that Stephanie is going to lead our efforts so that we're constantly communicating to not just the relevant agencies, but we're communicating to all the 200 plus chambers throughout the state of Texas. And we're integrating our education work through the DNA of TAB. Because at the end of the day, a big driver for companies is workforce. And our K through 12 system has room to improve, as do all systems in all the other states as well. And Stephanie's going to be continue to be our leader when it comes to those efforts. So, Erin, again, I just want to thank you for what you're doing to bring us together. But chambers united and demanding a great system all the way up and down the line, that was a difference maker in Arizona. And I expect that it will provide a big boost to these efforts that you've been working on and the mayor's been working on for years.
I think that's a really great place for us to kind of stop and reflect. And that is bringing these stakeholders to the table, like business owners and frankly, municipal leadership, like what you're showing, Mayor Parker, to have more people around the table saying, what is it that we expect of our systems to deliver for our students, for the students that graduate from our high schools? And how can parents play a larger role in that, because we know that's what they want too, is they want their children to be successful. And so I think this is a new era of bringing all these voices together, and we're very hopeful of the outcomes from that. A lot of this kind of boils down to questions of incentives, right? How do we get the incentives right? So a lot of the things that we think about are, how do we make sure that post-secondary education is actually delivering the outcomes we want it to deliver? So we look at models like Texas State Technical College, for example, and the way that they're rewarded for students getting jobs above an income threshold after graduation. And so those are examples of some things that are structural changes that could help move us in the direction that you, Glenn, I know are hoping to go, and Mayor Parker as well, to bring businesses to the table because they feel like they've actually got some leverage there. In addition to that, parents having more choices obviously creates a system in which the system leaders have to really pay attention to their wants and needs. So I think all of these things, bringing them together, will usher in a new era for educational freedom and reform here in Texas. And so with that, I'd like to see, do we have any audience questions? I'd like to go ahead and ask a couple of these because I think they're great, and you guys want to jump in, feel free to. So what are some indications that you guys would point to that parents should be looking for in terms of a good career and technical education for their child? So what are some of the hallmarks of those that you guys have seen, and what would you encourage parents to look for?
Well, I think first of all, our education institutions, K through 12 through post-secondary, we really have an obligation to empower parents with better information. I think we've had a tendency before to sort of hold the cards, and I don't think it was intentional. I think it just kind of over time. I don't know if you've been through that process, college applications, even, choosing which childcare facility, which school. I have 2 degrees and it was very difficult for me. So imagine if you're a mama with an 8th grade education and you don't speak English in the home. So first it's parent empowerment. The second would be, publishing, and we're working on that in Fort Worth and Tarrant County. I would love to work with TAB on this. What are the major emerging fields in business and workforce that we know right now in the next 10 years? And by the way, about 48 of the top 50 do not require a 4-year degree. Oftentimes it's some type of post-secondary credential, and being more intentional about publishing those. And the last thing I would say is reshaping the career technical education opportunities you have in your local communities and empowering parents differently. We're doing that right now with some PTechs and Fort Worth ISD, asking the question, what would it look like to reshape a PTech into a sector focused and industry focused rather than business focused, so that you have aviation manufacturing, for instance, which is something in Fort Worth that we're flush with, and giving those students a pathway to multiple different companies they could go work for in the future. But importantly, putting that language into the hands of parents to help them push their kids, because sometimes it's hard parenting a 16-year-old that's like, I just want to give up, mom, I'm tired. You have to empower mom, dad, or grandparent to help push their kid a little bit further.
I love that. I love the idea that when we're talking about empowering parents, it's about giving them the relevant, actionable information that they need, especially for students that are heading into high school and beyond. So that's a great point. Glenn, do you have any thoughts on that?
I agree with everything that the mayor said. I think we need to make sure that we make the licensing requirements as easy as possible, because my recollection is when I toured a CTE facility, which was unbelievable in Arlington, that there were some issues in terms of some regulatory barriers for students to get certificates in high school. It may have been age reasons. I can't recall exactly what, but I'd love to work with you, Erin, and the mayor to make sure we don't have any of those unnecessary regulatory roadblocks.
Well, we're certainly interested in those, and we are working on some identification of those very levers, Glenn. So we'll have a follow-up conversation soon, I think. So with that, I would love to thank our audience for joining us, and I especially want to thank our guests. And I think this was a fascinating conversation, and I think what it does is it helps us really understand the real world opportunities that we at TPPF's Next Generation Texas campaign are seeking to advance through our research and our outreach. So we believe, and this theme has come up a couple of times today, in this concept of parent empowerment. And we believe that should be ensured through in making sure that parents know what their children are being taught. That's transparency, and parents being able to rest assured that their children are getting the quality of education that they want, that they're met with respect when they have questions or concerns, and that they have choices. Moreover, if something breaks down along the way, or the zone school isn't meeting their needs. And so with that, we thank our guests today, and I encourage our audience, if you're interested and want more information, or would like to get more informed or engaged on these issues, to visit txparentsmatter.com. That's one word, txparentsmatter.com. And we'll hook you up with some great events going on around the state, and some opportunities to get more informed. So thank you all very much, and have a wonderful day.